This week I'll show you how to sculpt light on a white background.
Adorama TV presents Exploring Photography with Mark Wallace, where you will learn innovative techniques on shooting a wide range of photography. Here's your host, Mark Wallace.
Hi everybody, I'm Mark Wallace, and joining me today on Exploring Photography is Sam Kazuch. You probably remember her from some of our previous episodes. Well, I've been seeing a lot of emails and comments asking me why so many studios have seamless white paper on the walls or a white cyc, just a big white wall. Because people are asking, that seems pretty boring to shoot just on white all the time. Well, that's true, it can be boring. The nice thing about white backgrounds and seamless paper that's white is you can get some really nice beauty shots, or you can let that white background fall into shadow so you can get something that's not white, but it's either a gray or a really dark gray, and that adds some interest to your photos. But you can also do some other things, and you can use some things like grids and black foil and flags and all kinds of stuff to shape the light that's falling on your white background and create some really interesting effects. Now, on my Studio Lighting Essentials digital download, when I'm talking all about how to do studio lighting, one of the lighting setups uses this technique. And a lot of people are saying to me, Mark, there's no possible way that you could have created this picture using a white background because the background is clearly black. Well, actually, you can create a background that looks like that with white paper or a white cyc. And we're doing that with the tools I just told you about, some aluminum foil and a grid here and some flags. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to build a gobo that will help you shape the light. And then Sam is going to throw on this really cool old coat right here, and that's going to be used for us to create a really high contrast film noir look. So she's going to look very mysterious. It's going to be really high black and white, high contrast stuff. And you'll see that this white background is very dark and is really cool. Well, let's talk about gobos and shaping light and creating darkness out of white. So the first thing we need to do is understand how a white background can become dark. And that's really easy to show. So what I'm going to do is I have my camera already set up, and I'm shooting remotely actually. So I have a Pocket Wizard Plus 3, and this is triggering my camera. My camera is tethered to my laptop so I can see what my camera is doing, and it's all wireless. It's really cool. So that's how I'm taking pictures using my wireless trigger. So anyway, what I want to do is show you what happens when we don't have a flash turned on. We'll start there. And so what I'll do is I'll just take this flash, I'm going to turn it off, so we have no flash at all. My camera is set to ISO 200. It's shooting at 250th of a second at f10. So when I take a picture, so I'm going to make my camera fire. So my camera just took a picture. I'm going to look over here at my laptop. That photo is coming in, and I can see that when this pops in, it is completely black. It's just a really black picture. Now, what that means is with no light coming in with those settings, that this ambient light that we see really doesn't have any effect on the background. So this white paper is really a canvas for us to paint light. And so we can paint this with different shapes of light, and that's how we can create some really interesting backgrounds. So basically, this is black until we put light on it to make it white. And so that's how we can make a white background really dark. So let me further illustrate this point. So on this flash right here, what I've done is I have a grid. This is a 5-degree grid. It really constrains the light. And so this is going to show up right over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take a picture, and I'll put my hand in here just so you know there's no gimmicks. I'm going to make some weird thing, crossing my fingers, thumbs up, and I'll take a picture. And I've already metered this previously, so I'm going to go ahead and take a picture. And there it is with my crazy, wacky thumb crossed fingers deal. And when that comes into my laptop, you can see that everything is dark except for that really small area of light that's coming from this flash right here. And what that means is the only light that the camera sees is the light that's coming from the flash. And because the only light that the camera sees is the light that's coming from the flash, that means we can sculpt this light. We can make it into different shapes and change how the light on this black or this white background looks. So it'll be all dark except for the patterns that we're throwing onto it. And that is why we love this thing called a gobo. Now a gobo can be almost anything. All it is it's just this little thing where you can use almost anything. Wood, I'm using black foil here. You can use aluminum foil. You can use whatever. You're just cutting shapes into that, and so the light shines through this, and those shapes allow you to make shapes on the background. And so it's sort of the opposite of shadow puppets. So it's letting light go through, so everything is dark except for where the light hits. Now, this actually isn't going to look exactly like it looks on the paper. So if you cut out a little shape of a dog or something, it's not going to show up as a dog over here because you have to actually be able to focus the light. And if you don't have something like a Fresnel head or something that really allows you to really focus that light, the light's going to scatter everywhere and it's not going to look exactly like the shape. But that's part of the fun of it. And so what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you that what you really need to do is you need to use some grids. And so I have some grids here. This is a 5-degree grid. I have a 10-degree grid and also a 20-degree grid. And by using those different grids on these different shapes, we get dramatically different effects. Well, I've already created a gobo, and all it is just 2 slits in a piece of black foil. Now, one of the things that's really important to understand is how we position this. So Kelsey's going to come over here. She's running this camera right here. And we're going to show you how this works. So I have my flash set up with my grid inside this reflector. And notice how this paper is parallel to this. So it's the same exact, it's lined up exactly. So if I take this and I point this down, then I'm going to want this paper to also be lowered, but I need it to also match that angle most of the time, unless I want to create something that's unique. So that's what this little wire here is for. It allows me to sort of hold that in different areas, and I have to spend a little more time bending this wire back. But it allows me to sort of push that back or pull it out, and obviously we need to spend more time with it than that. But that's what this little wire is. It's really doing nothing for the light. It just helps me hold this in or out. So that's what that is. And that's pretty much all there is to it, except the distance from the light to the gobo. You need to make sure that this is the proper distance. And how do you know what the proper distance is? Well, it's trial and error. But we're going to have Kelsey come over on the other side here. I'm going to turn on my modeling light. And when we look at this aluminum foil here, this black foil, you can clearly see that this light is hitting right on this paper. We don't really want any of that to go off to the sides. And that's why this 5-degree grid is really important. So when I take that off, you can see that it's falling all over the place. But you want to really restrict that so it only goes through that gobo. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a photo and show you what this looks like. So I'm going to get out of the way here so you can see what this looks like on the background. So I'm going to take a shot, and then this is going to come in here. Now usually when you have a gobo, you might have to change the output of your flash up or down. But you can see we have sort of this ghostly looking thing here on the background. It's just this really small amount of light that just showed up right here. Now what I can do is I'm going to show you what these grids do. So I'm going to take this 5-degree grid off, and I'm going to put on a 20-degree grid. And what this will do is it's going to allow more light to come out from the flash, and it's going to allow some of that to spill on the sides. And so I'm going to take that same picture again. And now what happens is we get a dramatically different look on the background. It's not that just small chunk of light. Now look at this. It looks sort of like this ghost, sort of coming through here, and you can see my shoulder to the side there. And you can see how allowing some of that light to fall off the gobo really affects things. And then also we can bring this closer or farther away. So what I'm going to do is we're going to build a gobo here. And to do that, what I'm using here is a clamp and a C-stand. So I'm going to take my old gobo off. So I'm just going to put this on the ground here. And I'm going to take some black foil. Now I don't need much, about that much. And I rip that off. It's sort of like aluminum foil, but it's made for even higher heat. And so you get that. Then all I'll do is I'm going to take this wire here. I'm going to move that as well. So we're going to start from scratch. I'm going to put this over this and then clamp it on there. That's all there is to that. And then what I can do is I can start cutting into it. Now what I'm going to do to cut is I'm going to use a Leatherman. And then I've got this. I'm just going to poke it through here. I'm going to turn on my modeling light with, let's say, a 10-degree grid. Be careful that you don't stab yourself with your Leatherman because they're very sharp. So normally I wouldn't be having this out, but here it is. So now I can see sort of where this is laying, and I can make some very small cuts. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make some very, very small incisions. I don't want to have a lot of stuff going on there, but just enough to create some shapes. So I'm just playing around, making some C shapes here, some arcs, and we'll just do a couple more. You don't want to overdo it on this stuff. I might be overdoing it now, but you can see I just have some shapes here. And if you mess up, you can always just get some gaffer's tape and seal those. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So we've got a 10-degree grid. We've got this sort of lined up, and it's shining on the background. I'm going to get out of the way, and I'm going to take another shot here. So we have that shot, and let's see what effect we get on the background. I don't know what it's going to be, because it's sort of trial and error, but you can see that we have this sort of fishy look here. It's sort of this interesting thing. If we zoom in on this picture, you can see that we have some really interesting effects going on, and those are coming from the grid. So that's what's making those effects, those sort of lines there. So if I put a 20-degree grid on here, I'll do that. And we'll take another photo. I'll get out of the way so we can see what it looks like. We'll see if we have a different effect. But the point is, by changing the distance between the light and the gobo, by changing the distance from the light and the gobo from the background, you can make larger or smaller patterns. And you can see here we have this really interesting pattern coming up on the background. And by using maybe multiple gobos, we can put a bunch of different patterns, and we can create some really interesting effects. And that's what we want to do next. We're going to take that gobo that I showed you earlier with those slits on there, and we're going to use that to illuminate the background, and we're going to make some beams of light that come down and illuminate Sam. We're going to have her come back, and we're going to do a really film noir-y look. So let's put it into practice and shoot Sam right now. Well, now that we know a little bit more about illuminating the background, let's talk about how we can shape the light to really make things pop. So what we're doing here, Sam and I are going to shoot a really low-key, really high-contrast film noir look, something that's inspired by a 1920s detective film. And so we really want to have pockets of light, and we want a really, really dark background. So even though we have a white background, we're going to let that fall into darkness and then just add some light to sculpt what's happening. So the key to all of this is this light right back here. And so what I have here is a light with a standard reflector with a 10-degree grid that's really restricting the light, but that's not enough. In front of that light, I have a piece of black foil with just a little slit in the front of that. And what that slit is doing is it's shaping the light. So when the light comes through that 10-degree grid and then goes through this black foil, it creates this almost like a light coming through some blinds, little shutters, and it'll illuminate this background and give us this sort of really small slice of light, and that will give us that background interest. Now right now you can't really see what's happening because we have all these lights on, so I'm going to step back here and turn off the ambient light in the studio, and now you can see what's happening on this background. You can see that we have these little beams of light falling on the background. Those beams are created with the combination of that 10-degree grid and that little slit that I cut into that black foil. That's called a gobo. Now what we have is that background, and we want to make it look like it's a part of this picture intentionally. And so let me talk about the other lights that we've set up here to really make everything come together. So first off, we have this light right over here. We're going to kick on some more lights here so you can see what I'm doing. And this light has a really large reflector, but it still gives us hard light. And that's coming over here, and it's illuminating Sam. Now Sam is actually going to be facing away from that light, so this is illuminating her hair and this really awesome jacket she has on here, which is going to look great in black and white. But we really need to make sure that this light doesn't fall onto that background, because if it does, it's going to mess up all the work that we did by creating that gobo. So I have this big thing right here. This is called a flag, and what that does is it keeps that light from getting to places where it shouldn't go, which is the background. So that's that light. On the other side over here, what I have is another light, and it is going to fall and shine right in Sam's face. In fact, let me turn that light on so you can sort of see what's happening. This light has a 10-degree grid, and it's going to come right into Sam's face, and that's going to be our key light. Now what that will do for us, because it's really hard light, and it's just right on axis with Sam's face, that is going to be really bright light in her eyes, so that's going to shrink her pupils, so her eyes are going to look really, really nice. I'm going to see, if this was a color photograph, we'd see all the color in her eyes. So instead of her looking like she's on drugs or something with really huge black pupils, that's going to actually shrink it, and it's going to control all the shadows on her face, and it'll make it look really nice. But we need another light to sort of fill everything out. And so what I have way back here, way up high, is another light, again with a 10-degree grid. So what this light is doing is it's casting light right here on the back of Sam, and so that is adding a bunch of light coming from the other side of her face. So we're sort of getting her with 3 lights. It's 3-point light. And what that does, because we have this light coming this direction, is it actually makes it look like the light that's illuminating our background is also illuminating Sam. So it's sort of a trick that we're using to make everything stick together, and it looks great. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot a few pictures, and I'll show you how everything looks in the final post-production image. Well, we already have the shot that I want, but we're not going to stop there. So I have a couple of little teeny smoke machines that I got at a little drugstore here in town right after Halloween. And so I'm setting up both of those, one on each side of Sam. And we're going to try to add a little atmosphere. Now, these things are remote control, which is really cool. So I can just walk over here, start them, and we'll start shooting to see what we get. All right, well, thank you very much, Sam. That was awesome. You can see that using a white background, shaping the light, you can create some very, very interesting effects. Now, we used a lot of techniques today that we've covered in past episodes of Exploring Photography and Digital Photography 101, all on Adorama TV, specifically shooting with grids. We shot with a lot of grids in this episode, so if you've never used grids, make sure you check that out so you understand exactly what we did. Well, thanks again for watching us, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and we'll see you again next time. Let's walk over here, start them, and we'll start shooting to see what we get. The only thing the camera sees is the light from the flash. So we've shaped that light from the flash to look like rays of light. And we need to do it without tossing.
Yeah.
So what's been going on with you? Anything exciting, new, fun?
No.
Adorama TV is brought to you by Adorama, your best source for the equipment and knowledge you need. For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit Adorama.com. Place your order by 7 p.m. and it ships the same day. Plus, the next time you're in New York City, be sure to visit our store, located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. Check out the Adorama Rental Company for professional cameras, lighting, computers, and more. We'll help you make the best selection to match your needs while giving you the knowledge to achieve the best outcome from your rental. Adorama is your complete solution for equipment, printing, training, and more. Adorama, more than a camera store.